Okay, boys and girls, finally we can get back to writing. We should all have finished our on demand writing from last week, and now we can actually get started and talk about how we can write nonfiction and how we can write like experts. So, today I want to teach you that when scientists conduct experiments, when they do experiments to learn about the world, they have a certain way that they write. They use a lab report or a laboratory report. Those are big words. They write down what they think will happen when they do an experiment. They write down all of the things they see and do, and then they write about what they learned. And that's what we're going to do. Now, there's going to be a slightly different way of doing this than we did in the last unit. Now, in our last unit, we talked about real stories, right? Our personal small moment stories, but we used fiction books as our guide. We used Al Moon and Katie Wu and The Dog Who Belonged to No One and lots of other books. And we used their ideas, those writers' ideas, to talk about our story. Now, our story was true. Okay, that was nonfiction, but we used fiction as our guide. It's going to be a little different now because now we're going to use nonfiction books as our guides. So as we read more of these books in our reading lessons, we're going to get ideas and we're going to see how those writers do things, how they teach us how to write about real things. Okay, and we're going to use that in our writing. And for a little while, we're going to be writing about science. Now, I have to tell you something that I said before, but I mean it even twice as much now. Organization is important. So you can see on the screen that there's what's called a composition notebook. Sometimes we call this a marble notebook. This book should be used for writing. Okay, so I want you to be sure that whatever writing you're doing in this unit is in this book. It's got to be clean. It's got to be one page after the next, no skipping, no doodling or anything like that. Make sure you've got your pencil sharpened. If you don't have a sharpener, let me know. I'll sharpen some for you. Okay? We want to make sure this is organized and clean because we're going to have a lot of information. So, what do we need to know to write like a scientist? Well, the first thing is we need to ask a question about how the world works. So when somebody decides to write a nonfiction book, they usually have a question. They want to know something, or maybe they know something and they want to teach the rest of us about it. So we need to ask a question about how the world works. Now, what's going to happen in this unit is I'm going to ask the first question and I'm going to write the first report and you're just going to follow along with me. And then once it's finished, we're going to go back and I'm going to let you change it and write it your way. So ask a question about how the world works. Okay. All right. Now I've got my composition book open. You should have yours open too, to a clean page. There's nothing else on it. And it's probably a good idea to put the date on there. If you don't want to, that's okay. But you're going to write the word question just like that. And that little mark after the word question is called a colon. That means something important is coming up. Now, here's my question, and everybody's got to write this exact same question. If I rolled a toy car down a ramp onto a carpet and again onto a bare floor, would it travel the same distance? That's my question. So what I want you to do is write down this exact question, because right now you're not writing your own original idea. You're just following me to learn the process, to learn how to do it, and then you're going to use this as a model to write your own. So pause it here and write this down. Okay, do you have it? Great, let's move on. Okay, so we said to write like a scientist, we needed to ask a question about how the world works. That's what we just did. I had a question about rolling a car down the ramp. What will happen when I roll it on a carpet or on a bare floor? Will they go the same distance, or will it go further on one or the other? Now that we've done that, we need to take a really important step. We need to record a hypothesis or a guess. A hypothesis is a very fancy way of talking about your guess. What do you think will happen before you do the experiment? And it's so important to record your hypothesis, to write it down. And let's think of this. Let's say I was going to put a balloon in the freezer. I don't think you should do it, but let's say I want to do it and I wonder what will happen. Well, I could say this. I hypothesize that the balloon will pop. I might also say my hypothesis is that the balloon will pop. Or I could say I think the balloon will pop. It doesn't matter which one of these you use. Each one shows your hypothesis and you must use it. And then make sure you use the word because. My hypothesis is that the balloon will pop. I think so because blah, 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 blah. Or I hypothesize that the balloon will pop because blah, 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 blah. Or I think the balloon will pop because blah, 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 blah. You get the idea, right? Don't forget the word because. So remember what we're doing. Our question is, what will happen when we roll a car down a ramp? Okay, so we have our question, we have our hypothesis. We're back in our notebook now. Now we're writing the word hypothesis. And my hypothesis is that the car will, and for this part, I want you to write what you think will happen. Will it go further on the carpet? Will it go further on the bare floor with no carpet? Do you think it will go the same distance on the carpet and the bare floor? It doesn't matter. Think about it and write down what you think. And don't forget the word because. That's very important. Okay, and that's what we're going to get up to today. We are actually going to do this experiment. I'm going to show you. We're going to do all of the steps. Okay, so this is just to get us started. And boys and girls, that's it for today. I hope your pencils are as sharp as your brains and that you're having a great day. And I can't wait to do the next step with you. The end.